A very, very good evening to all of you, friends. A very, very good evening to all of you. Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep, the most comprehensive preparation app for all exams. A very good evening to all of you. In this session, I'm going to discuss with you prevention of violence against women, which happens to be one of the most important syllabus insofar as your class 11 legal studies chapter or your syllabus is concerned. Now, this particular chapter relating to prevention of violence against women deals with the various aspects, socio legal aspect relating to the violence against women that we have seen in the past. But before that, BYJU'S Exam Prep brings to you a very, very important playlist for chapter-wise explanation of Class 11th Legal Studies examination. We bring to you this particular playlist wherein you will find every chapter in brief being explained to you. So definitely go through this playlist because this playlist contains each and every chapter of your class 11 legal studies syllabus. Okay, so those of you who are preparing for class 11, yes, this is the playlist that you must definitely take a look at. So today I'm going to talk to you about domestic violence, domestic abuse, the laws in India, and the international legal framework. And we will definitely end with a particular quiz wherein we shall discuss around 12 MCQ questions. So, my first fact that I'm going to talk to you or discuss with you about is domestic abuse or domestic violence against women. Now, domestic violence is the violence of deprivation, of withholding the rights of a woman, be it mental torture, be it physical torture. Now, there are all types of threat against women even in this 21st century as we talk about. There is psychological torture, financial torture. Women and men are not paid equally. What more torture does it mean? Does it not mean? So we are talking about a kind of a psychology that exists in our society where women are considered as a lesser human being than men. And today we need to understand how do we transgress from a lesser equal society to a more equal society. Okay, so guys, let's begin. Now, the pattern of behavior within the domestic relationship is about gain of power. Who has the controlling power? Now, of course, as I said, there is economic abuse. For example, men and women are not paid equally. If you see Bollywood, if you see various places, you see men are paid more than women. But generally, it is more or less equal. But in Bollywood, there are certain areas where men are paid more. Second is the sexual abuse. So I have discussed with you the economic abuse. Now sexual abuse, yes, even in workplaces, there is amount of sexual abuse, we cannot deny. There is also psychological abuse. They are being abused psychologically, physically, and emotionally. So physical, sexual, emotional, economic, and psychological are the various types of abuses that takes place in our society against women at large. So that's one of the most important thing that we as students of law would have to understand, would have to understand, because in a society there is both men and women. We have both men and women living in our society. Now, but at the end of the day, you have to understand this very basic concept, which simply says that men are treated more equally than women. And let's understand the reason why. Now, if you understand the behavior, there is intimidation, there is manipulation, there is terrorizing, there is blame game, there is injury. So these are the various examples of the human behavior. Now, for example, as jealousy, anger, control, alcohol. Now, alcohol, I think, is one of the most important facets that you must all agree to. That men drinks alcohol, comes back home, beats up their wife. Yes, it's the truth. Now, some of us might be living in the cities. We don't understand everything as such. But there are a lot of people who are situated or located or they live in those villages of our country, wherein there is a lot of these kind of things happening. Okay, we cannot forget those category of people. Now, there is also jealousy in the workplace. Now, if a woman is rising up the ladder, men feels jealous. There is anger. Now, there is also sabotage, criticism, and blame game that happens or makes you think that man is more powerful than a woman. So we have to understand these important facets. We need to understand these particular important facets of human behavior. Now, the constitution of our country deals with non-discrimination. We say that men or women should not be discriminated. If you read Article 15 or Article 16 subclause 1, we say that there should not be any kind of discrimination on the basis of gender. But isn't it true that there still exists discrimination against women? Of course, yes. And that's why we have laws in India to prevent these kind of violence or these kind of discrimination against women. So domestic abuse can happen anywhere, be it on the basis of race, age, sexual orientation, religion, gender, married couples, cohabiting partners, and others. So that's one of the most important things. But our constitution, as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had framed, talks about non-discrimination. Now, there is also socio-economic diversity that exists. People come from various socio-economic backgrounds, different education level. Now, I'll give you a simple example. People who are well educated, they might feel that discrimination is happening. We might all say that women are discriminated, but people from the villages, both women, they all agree, they all accept that particular fact. They say that my mother was also discriminated, so am I. Now, should we go along with that kind of a mentality when we talk about this diversity that exists in our society? We are also talking about legal recognition. Now, a large part of the world has allowed LGBT people to be treated equally. In India, yes, the LGBT community is treated equally, except for marriages. That's a very recent judgment of the Supreme Court of India. Now, so in Supriyo versus Union of India, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So over here, we are understanding the most important facet. We are understanding one of the most important facet, that is legal recognition. Has the world, has the country legally recognized the fact that women are discriminated? Yes. The world, to a large extent, has understood that women are discriminated. There is a lot of discrimination against the woman. There is a lot of violence, domestic violence that takes place within the four walls. Half of them are hidden, 90% of them are hidden. Only 10% or 5% comes out of the home by way of an FIR or a 498 case, as you all know. So there is a legal recognition which is, forbidden in the Western countries. But what about the developing nation or underdeveloped countries? Now, there is also this cultural diversity that exists. Let's take, for example, the Taliban ruled Afghanistan. Women have to wear a burqa. Women are not permitted to go to schools. Now, if we have to attach education with gender or clothes with gender, then I think we are going not forward but little backward. The UAE have laws that permits limited physical means to discipline a spouse and children, which is permitted in places like Jordan, Zambia, Syria, Ethiopia. Now, what I am trying to say is this particular fact that there is a varied norms. The norms have been varied according to particular countries. Now, in India, thank God, even a woman can become a karta of an undivided Hindu family. HUF, Hindu undivided family. Now, 30 years back, women could not have become. So the laws, the Supreme Court is evolving, providing equality amongst all, irrespective of your gender or your caste or your creed or your religion. So here we are talking about the cultural norms. Now, there are a number of international legal framework that exist insofar as protecting women in workplace, protecting women in household, in the domestic life is concerned. But how much have it worked out? Now, we have seen Nirbhaya's case. India shook. The country shook. Not only Nirbhaya's case, there are every day at least more than 10 rapes happening in India. How many are getting reported? So the legal framework has to be little strong for them. Now, when we are talking about the international law, the Convention on the Elimination of All Form of Discrimination Against Women, in the year 1979, defines discrimination against women as a set-up agenda for national action to end discrimination. So this convention, 1979 convention, is referred to as an international bill for rights of women. 99 countries, including India, is a signatory. Today we have laws being passed in the parliament to protect and provide protection to these women who are concerned. The 1992 committee recommended that any form of violation of women's rights amounts to violence. So the moment there is a violation to a woman's right, that amounts to a violence. It's a kind of a violence because, physically men are more stronger than women, no doubt, physically. Now, based on that, you cannot go for a discrimination. Just because I am strong, I can beat you, doesn't mean that I have a right to beat you. Simple. Just because मेरे पास ज्यादा ताकत है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि मैं आपको मारूंगा. Simple. That is what the Convention of 1979 deals with. It talks about all removal or the elimination of all types of discrimination against women. It said, any gender-biased violence acts that results in and are likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering to women is violence against women. So violence against women can be physical, sexual, psychological, or any kind of suffering against a woman. We in this country will not be able to stop that unless and until we effectuate certain laws. The United Nations model legislation says that all acts of gender biased physical, psychological, and sexual abuse by a family member against a woman in the family, ranging from simple assault to aggravated physical battery, kidnapping, threats, intimidation, coercion, stalking, humiliation, verbal abuse, forcible or unlawful entry, arson, destruction of property, sexual violence, marital rape, dowry, bride price, that is, dowry, a kind of a dowry, relates to violence. Female genital mutilation, violence related to exploitation through prostitution, violence against household workers, and attempts to commit such acts are domestic violence. So the definition or the examples of domestic violence have been provided by the United Nations model legislation, which talks about whether it is a simple assault or a physical battery, whether it is a threat or an intimidation, whether it is stalking, verbal abuse, arson, destruction of property, sexual violence, marital rape, dowry, whatever it is, these all constitute domestic violence. Very, very important. Very, very important. So this is what the model United Nations legislation defines as a domestic violence. I hope you guys are able to understand this thing. And those of you who will be watching this session after some time in a recorded view, if you guys have any doubts, do let us know about your doubts. Now let's understand about the laws in India. We understood the laws or the definition of the United Nations relating to domestic violence. In India, we have the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence of 2005. Now, Section 3 says that any act or omission, commission, or conduct constitutes domestic violence if it, number one, harms or injures or endangers the health, safety, life, limb, or well-being, mental, physical, of the person or tends to do so, includes causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal, emotional abuse, and economic abuse to a woman. So the moment you are endangering the life physically, mentally, physically means, in your body, mentally means, a lot of fights happening just without a physical fight. Now, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse, everything amounts to domestic violence. If you are trying to harass, harm, injure, or endanger a person or coerce her in any other person related to her to meet an unlawful demand for any dowry or other property or valuable security, that also amounts to domestic violence. Or it has the effect of threatening the aggravated person or any other person related to her, as mentioned above, or injure someone physically, mentally, to any person. So if a woman is physically or mentally abused, harassed, torn apart, that simply amounts to the crime of domestic violence. That is what the Indian law says. That is what the Indian law speaks about. Now, of course, there is support service, the role of the doctors, the role of lawyers, the role of police, magistrate, NGO, protection officers. They're all there, of course. So we have got this particular diagram from Tare Zameen Par Foundation, which talks about domestic violence, the role of the people who would support, who will, in a way, support these women who have suffered domestic violence. They are the doctors, the lawyers, the police, the NGO, protection officers, and the magistrate under the law of Domestic Violence Act of 2005. Now, a number of questions do come in your CBSE boards, in your class 11th examination, relating to the law that exists in India. They might not ask you too many questions on the international law, but definitely they do ask you a number of questions on the Indian law. What is the law relating to domestic violence in India? How is it defined? Who are the stakeholders? Who can protect them? Those are the kind of questions. Now, there is always a mandatory medical facility and shelter homes provided to women who have suffered domestic violence. There is also provision for legal aid. Lawyers are going to help them. And there is also counseling that is done, psychological trauma that a woman undergoes, because of a drunken husband or whatever it is. A counseling process, okay, a psychological counseling process is to take place. Protection officers are also there to provide, to maintain a list of facility exists. Now, अगर एक दिन में किसी औरत को घर से निकाल दिया गया, उसको शेल्टर भी चाहिए, उसको अगर मार के निकाल दिया गया, उसको डॉक्टर का फैसिलिटी चाहिए, उसको वकील का फैसिलिटी चाहिए. So a woman as well as the doctors, the lawyers, the magistrates, the courts, the NGOs, they have to come in support of these women. Now, there are certain salient features of this Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005. And they are medical, NGO, police and home shelter and protection officers, lawyers and magistrate. Now, that's very, very important for each and every one of you to understand that doctors are there, of course, there. NGO is, of course, there. Police and shelter homes are also there. And after that, you have the protection officers, and then you have lawyers, and then the judges or the magistrate who are going to pass relevant orders in case they find out that a woman's rights under the law has been violated or she has been subjected to any kind of domestic violence under the law. So today we are talking about the fact that women have been subjected to various types of atrocities over the years, and it is due that we give our full support to women. Now, जब कभी मैं वुमेन बोलता हूं, आप ये मत सोचिए कि सिटी में क्या चल रहा है. ऑफ कोर्स सिटीज में जो चल रहा है वो शायद अलग हो सकता है, बट जो गांव में चल रहा है, जो हम लोग गांव के क्षेत्र में हम लोग जो देखते हैं, उधर क्या चल रहा है, उसके बारे में आपको समझना पड़ेगा. Now you have the civil law, that is section 31 and 33, that provides compensation, that provides a directive to the court to direct access to the court. Now, another one very important aspect that you have to understand is protection of wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, live-in partners. They are all protected under this Prevention of Women from Domestic Violence Act. Not only wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, live-in partners, they are all protected. Now, protection to the matrimonial home and shared household are also protected. So the call of the world or from the legal community in India is to stop violence, right? Whether it is physical, psychological, whatever it is, any kind of violence against women is a violence against mankind. Now, we cannot forget this particular fact that, whether today we are alive on earth, or we are born on earth because of a woman, your mother, my mother. So if we do not respect the woman, then we do not respect ourselves or anybody in this world. You should respect those from whom you are born, right? Only a woman can produce. A man cannot have a child without a woman. Similarly, a woman cannot have a child without a man. We must respect the fact that women are to be respected, whether it is wife, mother, sisters, daughters, live-in partners, whatever it is. It envisages providing service, NGOs. Now, NGOs do play a very vital and a crucial role. Let me tell you this. NGOs do play a super vital and a very dominant role insofar as providing help to these victims, the women. Now, there are a number of NGOs which work on women's. There are a number of NGOs which work on domestic violence. Yes, they do play a super important role. And I want most of you who would be watching this to work in an NGO for an internship for at least 1 month or 2 and see the working system. There is a single window clearance. For example, use of this law, whether a suit to be filed, a divorce petition is to be filed, everything. Now, the lawyers also play a very important and a crucial role. Lawyers also play a very important and a crucial role insofar as this particular mechanism is concerned. Lawyers do play a very important role. Is that clear? Lawyers do play a very important role. Now, we cannot deny the role of the lawyers today. They provide counseling, and the kind of counseling that is required legally, a lot of counseling is required. And that is why I say that yes, it is absolutely important for all of us to understand that the role of these lawyers are absolutely important and very predominant in a way. There is sexual harassment of women at workplace. There is prevention, prohibition, and redressal. In workplace, women are harassed. Now, there is this POSH Act, Protection of Women Against Sexual Harassment Act of 2013, which was made by the Ministry of Women and Child Development based on the Vishakha judgment of the Supreme Court of India, in which the Supreme Court of India laid certain guidelines insofar as protecting women from sexual harassment at workplace is concerned. So the Vishakha judgment, as we all know, Vishakha was a state of Rajasthan judgment, lays down certain guidelines, and that's which was made, and the judgment was of the year 1997. It took many years for the parliament to draft a law relating to sexual harassment of women at workplace. It is the duty of the employer to include a rule that in the company code insofar as preventing sexual harassment against women is concerned. They must establish a complaints committee to be headed by a woman, and more than 50% of that committee should be women. They must initiate disciplinary action against offenders, safeguard the interest of those women who are subjected to harassment in the workplace. And female employees shall be made aware of their rights. And if you work in an MNC or in any company in India, you have all these sessions in which somebody from an NGO or a very senior lawyer who deals with sexual harassment will come and discuss about various important facets relating to the rights of the woman and others. So that's all that we had for today. Let's start off with the quiz. Let's directly start off with the quiz. The first question, Shobit, Badza, yeah. What is the primary objective of domestic abuse or violence? To foster love and trust, to gain or maintain power and control over other person, to resolve conflicts amicably, to promote open communication. The correct answer is option B. To gain or maintain power and control over others. The primary objective of domestic abuse is that, a man will have more power, more control over women. Right? Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following is not a form of abuse associated with domestic violence? Physical abuse is, domestic abuse, economic abuse is, verbal and emotional abuse is, cultural abuse. No, that's nothing called cultural abuse. I don't know what do you mean by cultural abuse. Okay, somebody has to define that. Okay, so definitely physical abuse, economic abuse, and verbal and economic abuse forms a part of domestic violence under the law. Moving on to the third question. According to the description, domestic abuse can happen to anyone regardless of factor of race, age, or gender. Is it correct? Yes, it is. So yes, it cannot be determined. No, it is not incorrect. It cannot be both correct and incorrect. So the correct answer is yes. Domestic abuse is based on race, age, gender, sexual orientation, and others. Okay? Is that clear? Then we move on to the next question, question number 4. In which part of the world domestic violence largely forbidden and has legal protection to prevent and address it? Now, the Western countries, European countries, America and Europe, the Western countries have this domestic violence laws to protect women against being violated by law. You have to protect them. Question number 5. In what country are the laws permitting limited physical means to discipline spouse and children? And sure, you guys are aware of it's in the Middle East, okay, in those Arab countries. So it's not in the United States, they are the Western countries. It is the UAE. Okay, UAE is the correct answer. Okay, then we move on to the next question. These are all very simple questions, and I'm sure that you guys are aware and you are able to understand. What international treaty is often referred to as International Bill for Women? Which? United Nations Human Rights? No. UNICEF? NATO? NATO is just that European countries cannot be, it's a protection shield against the Soviet or the so-called Russia today, is the CEDAW. Okay, domestic violence against women. We are talking about protection of rights of women against any kind of violence. Okay, then we move on to question number 7. In 1992, what did the CEDAW committee recommend about any form of violation of women's rights? It is unrelated to violence? No. It amounts to violence? Yes. It should be ignored? No. It's a private matter? No. It amounts to violence. It said that any type of discrimination against women. It further went on to say that any kind of discrimination against women would also be considered as violence against women. Is that clear? Then we move on to question number 8. According to the United Nations Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women, this is UNDEW, VW. What is the definition of violence against women? Only physical harm? No. Physical, sexual, economic harm? Good. physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering. This is better. This is better. See, between B and C, C happens to be a better answer and hence it is C. Is that clear? See, पहले आपको लगेगा physical, sexual and economic harm. Harm or suffering. Harm or suffering. Option C ने दिया है, so option C. So that's how we have to answer these questions. Question number 9. Which of the following is not mentioned as an example of violence against women in United Nations Declaration? Marital rape is, forced prostitution is, workplace disputes. Workplace disputes. A man and a woman can have any kind of a dispute. Now that is not gender related, okay? I don't think so. Female genital mutilation, yes it is. Which of the following is not? So option C. Option C is the correct answer. So I hope that you guys are able to understand the kind of questions that you have to answer. Let's see, question number 10. In India, which acts provide protection of women against domestic violence? That is the Prevention of Women Against Domestic Violence Act of 2013. Okay, so it's the POSH Act, not the POSH Act. POSH is for children. Okay, so that's the PWDVA. We move on to the next question. What does PWDVA, Prevention of Women Against Domestic Violence Act, stands in the context of Indian law? Public welfare domestic violence. Okay, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. This option B. Option B is the right answer. Option B. As I said, it's of the year 2013. Very, very important for you. Yeah. So we move on to the next question. Which law addresses sexual harassment of women at workplace? And the correct answer is sexual harassment at workplace is the POSH law. POSH is only for within the, any kind of harassment in workplace, only in workplace. That is what is dealt in POSH. That is what is dealt in POSH. Is that clear, all of you? I hope I have made myself amply clear. And this session is the brief understanding. If you see this session around for 30-35 minutes, you will have a brief understanding of the laws. So guys, before I end, BYJU'S Exam Prep brings to you CLAT 2025 comprehensive course. We are providing you with 380 hours of live classes, 300 recorded videos, 55 mock tests, 10,000 practice question and practice tests, study material, doubt resolution, and the CLAT Ignite magazine. Before I end, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't by now, do follow us on our Instagram, like our Facebook page, join our Telegram channel, and do not forget to download the BYJU'S Exam Prep app if you haven't by now. With this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very, very much. God bless you. Stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye. Take care. See you soon. Have a great weekend, guys. Have a great weekend.